Mac and cheese with tomatoes and tomato sauce is an easy way to put a tangy twist on an old-fashioned favorite. This baked mac and cheese recipe replaces evaporated milk with tomato sauce and adds fresh tomatoes on top, giving this recipe not only a great flavor but also some great color. Along with a bit of sour cream and some smoked ham if you want, this casserole is going to be incredible. I've already done all the prep work, so let's get right into it. For an 8x8 casserole dish, which you can see is already buttered, I prepared half of a pound of whole wheat elbows, 227 grams. What I did is I brought the water to a boil and then I added the pasta and I boiled the pasta on high for 12 minutes. I drained it and then I used the residual heat to melt in 1 tablespoon of butter to give the whole wheat elbows a delicious glow. You can't have macaroni and cheese without cheese, so I'm using 2 8-ounce blocks, mild cheddar and medium cheddar, but you can use what you want. I took 2 ounces off of each block, so half of a block total, and I set that off to the side to make a topping. I'll get to that later. Like I said, I'm going to put fresh tomato slices on top of the mac and cheese. Not sure exactly how much tomato, but I just cut up 2 medium tomatoes. We'll see how much I use. And I'm also using 1 15-ounce can of tomato sauce. If you live in the United States, it's the type of tomato sauce that comes in cans that's not super spiced, it's kind of generic. That's what you want. Like I said, I'm using the 15-ounce can, so not the small one and not the big one, the one that is medium size. I'm going to add 1 large egg to help bind everything together. Like I said, I'm going to add some smoked ham, 4 ounces of just some smoked ham deli meat that I chopped up to turn this mac and cheese into more of a meal, but you can leave that out and keep it vegetarian, not a problem. For the topping, I'm going to add some sour cream. I have a 1/4 cup of full-fat sour cream along with a half of a block of cheese. I'll get into that later. And I'm going to add a lot of spices. 1 teaspoon each of garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper, as well as 1 teaspoon each of basil, oregano, and parsley. Like I said, everything's basically done. So now that we've gone over the ingredients, let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is add the egg to the tomato sauce. I'm just going to blend up that egg real fast. Then add it to tomato sauce. Usually when I make an old-fashioned baked mac and cheese casserole, I use evaporated milk and an egg, and I alternate adding the pasta, cheese, and then pouring over the custard. But I'm not sure if the tomato sauce would work its way all the way down. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to mix a good amount of the tomato sauce into the pasta. So let's see how that works. I probably should have used a bigger bowl, but that's okay. Maybe I won't add all of the pasta, or excuse me, all of the tomato sauce. We'll just put it all in. We'll see how this turns out. We are learning together. I mixed in all the tomato sauce, so now it's time to start assembling the baked mac and cheese with tomatoes. What I'm going to do, like I said, my 8x8 casserole is buttered. I'm going to put down 1/4 of the pasta into the bottom of the casserole dish, and then I'm going to sprinkle 1/4 of the cheese on top, a little bit of both the medium and the sharp cheddar. Then I'll sprinkle over 1/4 of the spices, and then I'll add 1/4 of the chopped ham. So basically, I'm going to put this baked mac and cheese together by making 4 layers. So I'm going to add 1/4 of everything at a time in each layer. The first layer of pasta is down, just enough to coat the bottom. I added in some of both cheeses. Now I'm going to add in some spices. I know that 1 teaspoon each of 6 spices seems like a lot, but this baked mac and cheese casserole has a lot in it. It has 2 8-ounce blocks of cheese plus half a pound of pasta plus the tomatoes and tomato sauce. So it's going to take a lot of spices to really make this flavorful. Almost forgot, need to add some ham as well. Like I said, the ham is not required. You can leave it out and keep this vegetarian, but I really like smoked ham with tangy things. So a casserole that has sour cream or something with tomatoes, I think it works out really well. Now for the second layer of pasta. I finished the second layer with the ham, the cheese, the spices, everything. Now for the third. It's pretty self-explanatory, so I'm just going to finish putting together the majority of this mac and cheese, and then I'll bring you back when it's time to put the tomatoes on the top. I just finished assembling the majority of my baked mac and cheese with tomatoes and tomato sauce. Now it's time for the topping. In this bowl, I have half of an 8-ounce block of cheese along with a 1/4 cup of full-fat sour cream, just mixing them together. I'm also going to add some spices, like I said I was going to. Honestly, I just eyeballed this. I did not measure, but I would say probably somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4 teaspoon each of all the spices that are in the main part of the casserole. The best way to go about this, in my opinion, is to add, for lack of a better way of describing them, dollops across the top and then smooth them out the best that you can. You're not going to be able to do it perfectly because, as you can see, the base is kind of soft. Just do the best that you can. And now it's time to add the fresh tomatoes on top of the mac and cheese. I probably cut them, I'd say maybe 1/4 of an inch thick, somewhere around there. And I am just going to lay the tomato slices on top. Now, this mac and cheese is going to go into a 350-degree Fahrenheit oven. My mac and cheese with tomatoes and tomato sauce just came out of the oven. It was in at 350 uncovered for 45 minutes, 4-5, a little bit longer than anticipated. I just wanted to cook the tomatoes on top a little bit more. Now I'm going to sprinkle it with some oregano. I like to sprinkle oregano on top of cooked tomatoes when they're done. Then I'm going to let this cool for a little bit, and then it will be time to serve. Like I said, the oregano on top is optional, but it adds color as well as a really strong scent that really takes this to the next level. This mac and cheese looked and smelled amazing, so I couldn't wait to give it a try. And when I took the first bite, I realized that my mac and cheese with tomatoes and tomato sauce recipe was definitely a success. In terms of flavor, I thought that the tanginess of the cheddar cheese and the tanginess of the tomatoes complemented each other very nicely. The spices were a nice addition as well, especially the basil. I actually went back and forth a lot with the spices because I normally don't add Italian spices to my mac and cheese. I normally just add garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper. But when I was developing this recipe, I thought back to my southern style tomato pie and how I really liked the basil combined with the cheddar and the tomatoes in that. So I wanted to add the basil and other Italian spices to this. And like I said, I'm glad I did because everything worked together perfectly. I also really liked having two sources of tomato flavor. I thought that the tomatoes on top, as you can see here, cooked down nicely, really bringing out their flavor and their sweetness, while adding tomato sauce to the noodles added some zestiness that was very pleasant. I also thought that the sour cream and cheese topping was a nice addition to this because it added some tanginess that wouldn't be there otherwise. But if you are apprehensive about adding sour cream to mac and cheese, you can definitely just do some extra cheese on top and it'll be totally fine. Although I thought all the ingredients worked together very well in this recipe, I have to admit that I didn't really notice the smoked ham. If you really want it to be prominent, I would add 8 or 9 ounces instead of just 4. But honestly, if you want to leave it out and make this vegetarian, you definitely could without really changing much. Another thing that I loved about this mac and cheese was the color. With the red tomatoes on top and the yellow cheese, it was just a beautiful color combination. Although I was definitely pleased with how my old-fashioned baked mac and cheese with tomatoes and tomato sauce recipe turned out, but in all honesty, I was expecting the tomato flavor to be a bit stronger. Don't get me wrong, it was definitely there, I just thought it would be stronger. Even though a lot of people would like it this way, if you do want it to have a stronger tomato flavor, consider adding some tomato paste. You could replace part of the tomato sauce with tomato paste, or if you're okay with maybe the mac and cheese casserole not holding its shape as well when it's cut, you could just mix in 1 6-ounce can of tomato paste to increase the tomato flavor. If you want a light tomato flavor in the background, go with this recipe, but if you want a stronger tomato flavor, you want it to be more of a tomato and cheese casserole, go ahead and add a 6-ounce can of tomato paste. My critique aside, I thought this recipe turned out great, especially for the first try. If you like mac and cheese, but you want to switch things up a bit, try something different, especially if you have some good tomatoes that you need to use up, you definitely have to give this a try. I know you'll like it. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.